Alright everyone, hello, welcome to the Blighted Minds channel. We're going to talk over some of the spoilers for Modern Horizons now that set is completely done. So I'd just like to start off by saying, hey, thanks for coming to the first one. Let's get this rolling. If there's anything at all that you like, dislike, don't want to see again, let me know. If you like it, give me a like down in the bar below, and if you have anything else to say, give me a comment. Let's start it off. Like I said, Modern Horizons is completely spoiled. There has been some ups and downs of it, some cards that I didn't expect to see. There was a lot of cards left out that I felt could have been in. Overall, the set let me down a little bit, but we still found a few good things to talk about. So let's roll right away into what I consider to be the bad. Starting right off with that, Flusterstorm. I know everybody is so excited about Flusterstorm, and I think the biggest misconception is that it's really good in Legacy, but what we have here is just an overdressed Spell Pierce for Modern. You don't have things that you get into free spell wars about that gets your storm count high, and I think it's going to be super underwhelming, but time will tell. So as of right now, I got to call Flusterstorm in the bad. As far as everything else goes, it's gonna probably see play, but I don't see it being the catch-all everybody wants it to be. A lot of people are saying, hey, we get to use it against Storm, but Storm gets to use it against us too. So moving on from that, Icefang Kotal. When this card got spoiled, it gave me a very good understanding of how the power level was going to be for the rest of the set because it wasn't Baleful Strix. And people are going to say, oh, well, it's really close, but it's not. It's not in the right color combinations, obviously, and the snow permanent requirement doesn't seem hard to meet, but it still is not going to fill the void where a lot of people that wanted to play Grixis decks are going to be able to utilize it in a way that Baleful Strix would have been able to be utilized. Plague Engineer is really neat. It's just too bad that it's on a body. Engineered Plague, I don't think is overpowered for the format. I like what they did here. I just don't like the fact that it's on a body. Sarah. She seemed really neat in the very beginning of spoilers. However, all of the Planeswalkers that came out with War of the Spark, with their built-in enchantment abilities, their static abilities, really outshine everything that Sarah does. Sure, she comes down, she makes a body right away, but when she does that, she dies to bolt or little attacks, and even the worship emblem that you get at the end isn't going to win you a game. So we stuck her in the bad. Urza. So, sorry. Urza was really exciting to see. Just to see his name. However, it's not a modern playable card. It's going to be a fun commander with a lot of other cards in the set, because this ended up being just a disguised red herring commander set, in my opinion. Urza is going to be, like I said, a really neat EDH card. He might see some play in Blue Steel somewhere, but all that aside, I don't think it lives up to the Urza that everybody else was expecting. Collected Conjuring. So, it's not green, it's not Collected Company, and for whatever reason, we don't get to hit the spell with Flash. We don't get to play it at the end of our opponent's turn. We have to commit our turn to casting it, and then we only get to get sorceries with it. I feel like some Maybe it could have been too broken if it was an instant, but it's just not what I was expecting for a spell version of Collected Company. Prohibit. I'm not saying Prohibit's a bad card. This is mainly going towards the menagerie of 2 mana counter spells with restrictions, and the format doesn't need another 2 mana counter spell with restrictions. It just needs counter spell, and we'll move on from there. This could have been really neat if it would have been Hymn to Turok, or if the overload didn't target yourself. If it said target opponent discards 2 cards and had an overload for all opponents, this card might be playable in something like Dredge. It's not the Hymn effect that I was hoping for. Goblin Matron is neat to see come to Modern. She needs a little more support. It'd be neat to see some Goblin decks take a spot in the format. I just don't think we have enough support, like Gem Palm Incinerator and some other things that are missing, like the actual Legacy deck plays. But it's a neat inclusion. It's just not here at a time where she can be appreciated. And then we'll move on to the ugly, the cards that I really thought just were terribly horrible. Pondering Mage obviously is just a 3/4 human for 5 that ponders. If it would have been a mana less or had flash, we could have made good use for it, I think. Maybe some decks somewhere play it that can give it flash. I don't know where that would ever happen. It just would have been neat to see a ponder effect at a cheaper mana cost. Cabal Therapist. Still a super neat card, however, you don't get the flashback ability of Cabal Therapy. I don't think Cabal Therapy itself would have been terrible for Modern. There's a lot of scenarios with combo decks now that are going off super early, where Cabal Therapy could have helped mid-range decks play better in the meta. It would be neat if this thing was able to have some sort of a returns from the battlefield ability, even if it was some sort of raid ability or something where you have to attack with something else and you can make it come back. It just feels like a one-sided 1-for-1 where you got to give up a body. After giving it a lot of consideration, I don't really think Cabal Therapist is going to see the amount of play I initially thought it was going to see. And it's just too bad it doesn't have some sort of a graveyard recursion effect. Settle Beyond Reality, I initially was really excited for until I realized it was a sorcery. Again, committing 5 mana to your turn to do either one of those effects is just way too expensive. Diabolic Edict. So it was really neat to see Diabolic Edict show up. However, it appears that even wizards in their own building can't communicate between departments. We have Liliana's Triumph now, which is just a better edict. It doesn't target the player. It just says opponents, and it also has an upside if you control a Liliana Planeswalker. So we got Edict, however, it's just outclassed by another card now. Back to the counterspell thing. I wish Modern was not defined as a 3 mana counterspell format or a 2 mana counterspell with restrictions. It bothers me. It bothers me. The Mox initially seemed neat. It's like, well, what if you can cascade into this thing, but you got to put a lot of work into something that you want to be playing earlier on to get to your cascade spells. It might see play in Ad Nauseam or something weird. I don't know. That might not even be the deck, but it's going to see play in something that has cascade probably as just a mana rock and probably in some commander decks. but the suspend is just weird for something that you want before your turn 3. Firebolt, I thought was really neat too. Problem is, it's still a sorcery. If that would have been an instant, that card would have instantly seen play in Burn and just a bunch of other decks, because the ability to just have that sitting in your graveyard for turns later is neat. It might be okay still being a sorcery, but the card would have been really great as an instant. So on to the uglies of things that I felt should have been included that weren't. Basking Ritwalla. I see no reason why that couldn't have been. For some reason we had to get Frostwalla or whatever it was called from Horizons. This was a card that I really, really expected to be in the set and just wasn't. Shardless Agent was another card that I was really hoping to see. It's just one of those things where it didn't feel like it was super broken, and it would have been a neat inclusion to have with the Mox Tantalite, just something that you can cascade into in a mid-range deck so you have a mana rock for your later on. Pernicious Deed. We have a land that has a engineered explosives ability. We have EE itself, and I feel like, at a green and black mana cost, to the restriction of the amount of decks that could have played it, that Pernicious Deed could have been in the set. Last but not least, where's our counterspell? Mark Rosewater, after Dominaria, said that they had talked about putting it into Dominaria, and that it just did not fit Standard, and they didn't want to push it through Standard. So why? Why was it missed? Why was it skipped on? I realized that they said that they didn't want it to be the highlight of the set, or whatever excuse they're using now. But, we have the dialogue. Like, we can't forget about it. It was there. It was on the table. It was discussed. I would like a personal explanation as to why exactly it's not there. Like, hopefully it's in some upcoming set. I just don't get it. I don't understand. But we're just at that point where we need some explanations. And finally, let's get on to the good of the set. The things that I felt that really shined in Modern Horizons, and cards that I think will really push sales. First off, we have the cycle of the Canopy lands. We'll just call them at this point. They're different colors of Horizon Canopy. Have the sacrifice it, draw a card effect. So there's the blue-red Fiery Islet, the black and green Nurturing Peatland, the red and white Sunbaked Canyon, the blue and green Waterlogged Grove, and the black and white Silent Clearing. I think these are going to make excellent additions to decks that want to play in the mid-range, want to play draw cards, or even just aggro decks that are 2 colors that want to draw extra cards. And I can't even restrict them to just those types of decks, because I can see literally everybody wanting to throw 1 or 2 of these in a deck somewhere just to draw a card in the late game, because that effect is just bonkers. And it's going to replace pain lands in decks that played them traditionally, other than the fact that it doesn't produce colorless mana, so Eldrazi, like 2.5 color decks won't be able to take advantage of it. The next thing that I wanted to talk about were the cycle land cycle. These have been missing from Modern, and I can think of decks that would want to be able to play these and then recur them with Life from the Loam, or the Artifact, Crucible of Worlds, and get extra value out of these. These seem really neat. We got Barrenmoor, we got Forgotten Cave, Lonely Sandbar, Secluded Steppe, and Tranquil Thicket. So all 5 of those are in there. super neat, really nice inclusion to the set. The first sliver. So I myself was a sliver commander player back in the day, and just a sliver tabletop deck. I remember having my original dual lands and just jamming them into my sliver deck with slivers that produced mana and did all sorts of crazy effects. And it was really nice to see a nod off to the original slivers. And even though I don't like the tribal EDH-ness of this set, it was nice to see this as a 5-color legendary sliver, something that can be used as a commander or even used in a tabletop deck. And giving him Cascade is just a super neat thing. It's going to help sliver decks just do crazier things than they used to. The Archmage's Charm, for being a 3-mana counterspell, it's basically a baby cryptic command. I want to see where this is going to see play. It seems like a really, really neat card that could be played in a bunch of control strategies. Kaya's Guile was the first card that I saw in the entire set that really, really got me excited that I needed to have a couple to play in some decks. I am traditionally an Esper player, and this card spoke to a whole bunch of things that I wanted to do in my Esper Modern Control deck. The abilities are all super relevant, and the ability to entwine later on is just over the top. The Face of Divinity was really neat for, I think it'll see play in Boggles. If it doesn't, I don't know where else it sees play, but it just seems like a 3-mana enchantment that fits right in the Boggles deck. And they had a super limited amount of things that they played that were good enough for the deck, and I think this meets the criteria to fit in there. Echo of Eons. What more can we say? You put it in your graveyard, and it's a Time Twister. Kess. Kess was a super neat card. Super excited for her. I want to see how Grixis handles Kess. I wish Baleful Strix would have came in the format, because I would be right on the Grixis train right now. K-Command is one of my favorite cards to play in Legacy. It's the reason why I stay in Grixis Control instead of going Esper in that format. And just to be able to recast spells like that seems super awesome. I've been wanting to try Kess in Legacy anyway, and now that she's Modern Legal, might have to do some brewing on that. Lightning Skelemental takes me back to my things I wish I could do with Bloodbraid Elf stage. If I still had my Jund deck, I would be right on board trying out the Lightning Skelemental. It's super neat. Would have been really cool if they would have just called it Lightning Elemental. However, it's basically just that. It's a beater with haste and trample that has a lightning effect on it, and I think it's just gonna slot right in. I don't know if it makes Jund super playable, but it definitely will add something to the deck that it was missing before. Factor Fiction is another card I was really excited for. I don't know, honestly, who takes more advantage of this card, but I think it's going to see some widespread play in a number of decks. I thought it was really bonkers when I saw it in the spoiler season, and I can't wait to play it myself. Morophon, the Boundless, is another one of the cards that I think is just going to be over the top for Commander players. You get to just play this thing and Fist of Suns and do whatever you want with whatever spells you want, and it just seems like that'll be a lot of fun. Seasoned Pyromancer was another one. I keep hearing about people wanting to play that alongside regular Pyromancer, and I think it's going to be a nice inclusion to that deck. Shattered Assumptions is another card that I think can be neat. I don't know how much widespread it plays. I think it's more of a sideboard card. To be able to be on the play and disrupt Tron strategies or factory strategies seems really relevant, and also just mid-range multicolored strategies. I can see the card seeing play in a number of formats and sideboards, and we'll just see how that pans out, but I think that's going to be a good card. Sword of Truth and Justice is going to be bonkers, at least in Legacy. I can see blue-white or Esper Stoneblade just slotting this right in, being happy as can be. You get to put counters on whatever creature you have that's in combat. You get to put counters on your Jaces and whatever Planeswalker package that you run in the deck. And then just having Pearl White and Blue, you don't have to worry about Path or Swords or any of that stuff. I think that's going to be a nice inclusion to that deck. This is another card. I think this is more of just an ad nauseum style card, but the ability to cascade and then having the ability to do it again as a backup plan, I think is going to be huge for decks like that. 4 mana is not a whole lot of mana for that, and the cascade ability is what you want there. The Unsettled Mariner is going to be good in a lot of creature decks. Merfolk, humans, spirits, you name it. You get a Thalia that's not a Thalia, and it's not legendary, so you have multiple effects when you have multiples of them. I think it's just going to be an auto-include. Wrenn and 6 is... I'm sure everybody else has seen a bunch of other spoilers on it. It's looking to see instant play all the way into Vintage. It has just a ton of utility, and it's just going to be the best 2-drop Planeswalker that exists. With that being said, that's those were all my picks for everything in Modern Horizons. The release date is June 14th. So if you, if this gets you excited or not excited, let me know. And like I said, if there's anything that you want to see different in my videos, or things that you want me to include or disinclude, please drop me a comment. Let me know. Thanks for watching.